But in that light, as to what you've been talking about, it is relative to this question that's been asked over these last days, and that question has been, where are we? What is this place that lies beyond existence, knowledge and bliss? Well, there's Satchitananda, where the levels of existence unite seamlessly to bring about a state of intense awareness or presence. But as was said, perhaps it would be better to turn the question around and ask, how do we know that we've arrived in that place? What are the qualities that are present when we do? Because it's beyond the mind. So in that sense, there's a riddle. And this riddle is a story about a certain very rich merchant. And as he was sitting in the coffee shop, he heard talk amongst the pundits and all who gathered there, that there was a state of immortality, and that this state of immortality could be attained through an elixir that could be created, the elixir of immortality. So this enraptured the very rich merchant. So he started an exploration. He went out to look for the ancient books and texts, and he learned the language of the alchemists, and he built himself a little hut in his garden where he started to gather all of the accoutrements and the implements and the essences to create this elixir. And he followed the text in the ancient books, step by step, religiously. Now, of course, he spent a lot of time in this hut, working on this elixir, and his wife would often ask him, "What are you doing?" But of course, it does say in those ancient texts that this process is secret. So he kept his lips sealed and left his wife uninformed and very curious. Well, he spent many years tinkering in his hut with the essences and studying the books and following religiously those steps that are said to bring one to immortality. But he arrived at a place where the books told him he had to gather certain very rare herbs. Now, to gather these herbs, he would have to take a journey, because it was in an ancient, far-away land. So he left his wife. He put a huge padlock on the door of his hut, telling his wife that no one should go near his hut, and he set out on his journey to find these sacred and very rare implements and essences and herbs. But of course, you know what a woman's curiosity is like. She wanted to know what was in that hut.
Nothing was going to stop her.
Nothing was going to stop her. So she went and hired a locksmith to come and open the lock for her. Well, as it happened, the locksmith came along, and just as he was tinkering with the lock, he had a massive heart attack and died. So some time passed, and the merchant came back from his travels, and he immediately went to his hut and he burned it down. So his wife said to him, "Why did you do that?" And the merchant said, "Well, I gathered all the sacred herbs, the rare herbs that it said to find that would complete my project of making the elixir of immortality, and then I reached the last step. And the last step said that to complete the process of the alchemy that would bring the elixir of immortality, a locksmith must die. And since it is against all the laws and tenets of our religion and our life that we cannot kill anyone, I have given up my quest." Now the question that arises, and the riddle is, did the merchant attain immortality?
Depends if his wife told him or not. That's a very funny story.
But it's a very deep and important story in relationship to this question that's been asked. How do we know? When we put this story together, did the merchant attain immortality because all the requirements were completed? So it seems.
I'd say not.
Really?
I'd say his wife was immortal too. Definitely.
Because he didn't realise that he could have it. Because when he hit that step, if he was going to attain immortality because the locksmith already died, he would have achieved it.
It goes back to what you've been talking about just now in the reading. We have this paradox. Paradise, and yet there's always mosquitoes or a storm that comes, or cane toads that come in the house, isn't it?
He wasn't a very good communicator though. He didn't communicate very well.
He might have had a chance of immortality because he used his wisdom to, and in not wanting to harm another there. So, he had more chances.
Yes, we have to look at this paradox about the movement and the stillness of life. Where are we?
Yeah.
What is it that is this place where all the levels of movement, existence, knowledge and bliss are unified in our intense presence in awareness?
And the question arises, can it be attained only by conscious effort?
That's right.
Or not?
Or not. And because of these other factors, because this happened without him even having to complete what he thought was a broken law, in fact all of those things were complete. So what is it that stops us? What is it about this state of awareness? Because we're always aware, waking and sleeping.
Assumptions and beliefs.
Yes.
Simply put.
So what is this state that we have to say is beyond existence? When we can't go beyond existence because our mind is always aware. How do we know? How do we know then that we've arrived, so-called? How do we know? This is the question that, if we can answer this.
You would have to be either in a knowing state or be told
Okay.
that you are.
Uh-huh.
So someone will say, you've arrived, if they can, if there's such a thing. Otherwise, you'll just have to know.
But then the mosquito comes in, or the cane toad come in the door, or the storm comes over,
That's
and
right.
bang, there goes your...
So it depends on whether you actually have that. Yeah, because that belief system and that these limitations we put on ourselves
Uh-huh.
through those sorts of things,
Mm-hmm.
they stop us allowing other things to come in.
All right.
And so if we assume a particular thing or have a belief about a particular thing,
Mm-hmm.
and we get stuck in that, then all the other opportunities that are waiting to come in won't come in because we won't allow it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
There we have
So
our...
when you're beyond all that, I suppose, that would be...
How do we know?
Is
That's the
there a
question.
beyond? That's my question.
That's right.
Is there
a beyond
Is there a
when
beyond?
we reach this limitation of
Yeah.
words?
Yeah.
Oh, there's definitely a beyond.
Is in fact there is.
Those
Beyond
times
the
that-
beyond, as the chants say. Sorry.
Concept
Mm.
exists.
Those times that it happens for me, it's never my doing.
No,
It just happens.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So what does this story have to impact on us in relationship to this question that's being asked? That's the riddle that's posed to you.
The ultimate step that he took was a moral step, actually.
Yes.
He strove, and I would see that parallel to us developing our own, well, I'm going to put this tool in my toolbox, and I'm going to go to that workshop, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to meditate, and I'm going to do all these things because it'll make me eternal. And immortality, and the irony, of course, is it's there all the time in the first place, and ultimately that final step was for him a deeply moral step.
Yes.
In his heart and his being, he couldn't bring himself to harm another being. It really got down to something very fundamental for him,
Yes.
and that made him let go.
Yes.
And in the letting go,
How the process came.
Pick 'em up.
How the process,
Yeah.
letting go.
Yeah.
the letting go was it. He actually, in that moment, all of those things became null and void, and then
Absolutely. Absolutely. In the burning of the hut. So there's a very clear clue for us. How do we know?
So the question then becomes, does immortality exist on this plane, or does it exist on another plane?
Or does it not exist at all?
Well, it definitely exists, otherwise the word wouldn't exist.
Really? Uh-huh.
So it's just a matter of understanding which plane it exists on.
Yes.
Because, you still have to, as they say, chop wood and...
But isn't this place that we're talking about beyond the opposites? So you have mortality and immortality.
Yeah, it's neutral.
Okay.
But it's definitely here.
Okay.
But what does it look like?
But while our mind is clinging to it,
Wow, I'm understanding.
one has to go through a process to arrive at it.
That's it.
So where do we get?
What's it look like?
What do we have to do to get beyond that? Drop it.
Then communicate a bit better. If he would have taken his wife in, she would have probably mentioned to him maybe that she tinkered with the logs and the locksmith.
Oh, he knew, of course. This is a foregone conclusion that he learned that the locksmith had died.
Oh, he did.
Oh yes,
Okay.
because he told her the story, and of course she would tell him that well, I tried to open the thing and blah blah blah. That goes without saying in the story. That's implicit in the story. Yes. No, he knew.